Hey, what's up, everybody? Can everybody see my screen and hear my voice and everything okay? Awesome, cool. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We've been doing these weekly calls inside our ScriptBlast members group, and this is the first time we've opened it up to outside people. So we thought it would be fun for you guys that haven't experienced this to get an idea of what we do inside the group. And so I think this will be really fun and really cool as we kind of talk through kind of just our mid-year, reboot of our goals. I know a lot of us start off with New Year's resolutions. We're all excited about our writing for the year. And we set these big goals, and then something happens usually around the summertime where those goals are falling further and further from our reach. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what goes wrong with those goals and to revisit them and to really finish 2021 strong. And this is kind of a new setup for me. Oh, look, see, I made a mark right here. How did that happen? Huh. Anyways, so this is how this is going to work. We are going to talk through a few items here. Defining your writing priorities, setting high return, short-term goals, creating better writing habits, improving time management, and tips to get more done in less time. If we have time left over after that, we're going to try to wrap this up in an hour and be respectful of everybody's time so that you can get to writing, hopefully, today. But at the end, we're going to do a Q&A. So if you have any questions about screenwriting or productivity or any of that, you can post them in the chat and we'll visit those with whatever time we have at the end there. So let's first, because a lot of you are new, I thought I would introduce myself for those that don't know me. My name is Hudson Phillips. I'm a writer and producer out of Atlanta, Georgia, and also the founder of ScriptBlast. I just wanted to give a little bit of my journey so you understand where I'm coming from and why you should care. So first, I started writing over 15 years ago, being in Atlanta, unable to move to LA. You know, I know a lot of you probably are writing from the middle of nowhere and frustrated with not being able to connect with the right people. Well, I've been in your shoes for 15 plus years. I stayed in Atlanta because I had a son and was divorced and chose to stay here to raise him. And so it's been a real uphill battle with the screenwriting stuff. I would write something, send it out to LA, found a little bit of success early on. The second script I wrote was optioned by Lionsgate Films. It was this big, exciting moment, and then everything that could go wrong with my career did, and it just went straight downhill after that. But so I really faced a lot of these struggles that I know a lot of you are facing, which is, how do I write more? How do I write better? How do I make connections from the middle of nowhere? And really what I discovered over this journey is the two things that made the biggest difference in my career in my writing were these two items of productivity, which is, learning how to knock stuff out, how to treat it like a job, how to sit down and get the writing done. The other one was community, because I found that through this really up and down journey of the screenwriting world that it got really lonely, it got really frustrating, it got really depressing multiple times along the way. And I found that finding a community, and it's the reason why I started ScriptBlast, was to provide a community for people who were struggling with some of these same emotions, some of these same things. And so those two things really drove me. We'll talk a little bit about more of my purpose and how it helps me get writing done as we walk through this. But those two things really drove my writing, really drove the ScriptBlast community. And I kind of reinvented myself as an indie filmmaker and started making films here in Atlanta. We just had a film come out in last month. It's called This World Alone, that you can find on iTunes and Amazon's and all digital platforms in the US at least right now. And so it's been, I've seen the results of putting in these little tiny seeds all along the way. And as long as it takes, and as frustrating as it takes, it's really starting to pay off in my career. And the fact that you guys are just here today tells me that you are committed to this journey as well. So I'm really excited about sharing this time with you today. So let's jump into it. And can you guys see this green mark across my screen? That's going to drive me crazy, and I don't know how to get rid of it. But okay, so yeah, so why do people give up on their goals? Why do we set out with these huge goals, and why does it get so frustrating? Why does it fall apart? Why do we constantly face the struggle? I really think that there are three main reasons. One is it's not personal enough to you, that you don't have a clear why, a clear thing driving you, a clear reason to get up and write every single morning. The second one is that it might not be really what you're passionate about. You know, you think movies are cool, you come up with this idea, you start writing it, you kind of hit that middle act and start to lose momentum. And I think a lot of times it's because you haven't chose the right project that you're purely passionate about, that gives you a strong reason to push through. And finally, as we talked about a little before, which is we're not connected enough. Right? That we don't have a community. The biggest momentum driver for myself is either the ScriptBlast community driving me, holding me accountable, or collaborators that are holding me accountable. I first wrote with a couple of buddies of mine, and then I started my indie film journey with a director. So there's always someone waiting on what I was writing, and it gave me a big momentum builder in order to tap into that. So we're going to explore these things today, how to make it more personal for you, how to make sure that you're writing the right project that you're passionate about, and make sure that you have a community to hold you accountable as well. So first is, so much of my life is driven by my why, my reason. So I had this moment, very specific moment in my life where all that stuff with Lionsgate had fallen apart. I was writing scripts, sending them out to LA, nothing would happen. My two writing partners dropped out because they were so frustrated with the experience. And I found myself just kind of broken, alone, personal life things had fallen apart. And I had lunch with a friend of mine who was really one of my good friends in college. His dad, and my good friend in college, had passed away when we were young. And so I had lunch with his dad, and his dad became a pastor after his son died. And he said the reason he became a pastor is because he wanted to take this experience of losing his son and help other people who had gone through that. And that was his way of doing that. And so for myself, and he kind of told me straight to my face, he's like, Hudson, you've survived all these life experiences, and you have this thing that you love, which is your writing, and you need to combine these two things. You need to write with purpose. Every day when you get up, you need to be thinking about how I can take these life experiences that I've survived and pour them into my writing so that they can make a difference in other people. And that became my why from that moment on. And that was about 12 years ago. And it completely changed my writing of just saying, this is why I exist. This is what my writing, it serves a bigger purpose than just myself. And so I want you to figure this out for yourself. And we're going to go through an exercise that you can write your own personal mission statement that will be that reason for getting up and writing. That's something so much bigger than just yourself and just your own goals. So first, this is kind of an experience I do. So you take, look back over your life and what are your peak experiences? What are the things that you were most excited about, that that just filled you with joy? What are the moments that you're most thankful for looking back? For myself, it's things like, you know, I used to play in a band, and recording with that band was this real peak experience for myself. Having a kid, raising a kid, these moments that I spent with my son was a real peak experience. And so what this does when you look back at those experiences and then you assign a value to it. So, you know, playing with a band, that was collaboration for me. It was connecting with other people. It was creating something from nothing, songwriting. You know, with my son, it's inspiring him to be something bigger than himself. It's connection. So take a moment, and what we're going to do here is I'm going to run through really fast through a lot of things. So I'd love for you to take notes, because a lot of these exercises are things you can do once we hop off, because I'm not going to give you a ton of time to do them right now. But this is a great exercise to list your peak experiences, list the value associated with that experience as a way of tapping into what drives you, what keeps you motivated, what your main why. So take a moment to kind of think through those just for a second here. So I landed on these 4 values when I look back over my peak experiences, and they were connection, connecting with other people, creation, creating something out of nothing, empathy, really connecting with other human beings and sharing in emotional experiences, and inspiring. You know, one of the reasons I started ScriptBlast is I love teaching and I love sharing with other people, and I love inspiring people to chase their dreams. That has a lot to do with what we're doing here today. And so I took those 4 values and I turned it into this mission statement. So your mission statement should be 4 things. So 1, it should be as clear as possible. 2, it should be as personal as possible. It should be only for you. 3, it should be emotional. It should make you feel something when you revisit it. And finally, it should be something you can accomplish at any moment. I think a lot of times we set these big goals and we set these big kind of missions for ourselves that one day I can do that. You know, if your mission statement is, you know, I'm going to make movies with Steven Spielberg, that's not something you can do right now. So what is something that you can do right now? And here's what my mission statement looks like. It is, I use my talents and experiences to connect with others, to create stories that encourage empathy and inspire others to do the same. And so you can see that I clicked all those boxes, that it's clear, it's personal, it only is for me. This would not apply to you. It is emotional. It makes me feel something. And it's something I can do every day. I can get up right now. In fact, I am doing this right now, but I can get up every day and do these things. I can use my talents and experiences to connect with others. I can create stories that encourage empathy, and I can inspire others to do the same, no matter what level of success I'm at. So once we hop off of here, I want you to take those values and kind of work them into this statement for yourself. And what I do is I actually have it printed out. You can see it's all balled up and circled and stuff. But I keep it in my little hard drive case. So every time I pull it out, I'm reminded of why I do what I do. And this is what drives me. So I highly recommend you write it down. You keep it close, either in your notes app, maybe on the your home screen on your phone, maybe paste it above your desk, wherever you write, to be reminded of that why, of why you get up in the morning. So we talked about, you know, how to make it more personal. Now we want to talk about how to make it more passionate, that you are excited about what you're writing, that you are working on something that motivates you to finish it. And so that's all about, I think, finding the right project. I think a lot of times we have an idea for something, it kind of rolls around in our brain and we think we're excited about it. And then we start writing it and we just can't finish it. And it's because we're not excited about it. But we've already invested all this time, so we don't want to let it go. And we keep at it and keep at it. And it just becomes this kind of slog. So what I like to do is I draw 3 circles that are interconnecting, you know, like a Venn diagram. And I write in passion, I write in clarity, and I write in momentum. And that's how I help decide on the next project that I'm going to write. So passion is what excites you. What movie do you most want to see on the screen that isn't being made right now? What movies do you love? What story do you most want to go to the movies and see? That's what you should be writing, not the thing that you think will sell, not the thing that you think is doable, but the thing that you're just most excited about. The second is clarity. So what story, a lot of times I run into this. I'll be passionate about an idea, but I don't have a clear idea of the rest of the story. And so I'll start writing it. And again, I hit that slog because I didn't see the story clearly and I had to do a lot of homework in order to get to it. So what is the story that you see from beginning to end and it just clicks like that and the idea is a movie in your head? That's what you should be writing, because the more clearly you see it, the more smoothly that process is going to go. And finally is momentum. Is there an idea that's got some energy behind it? Maybe it's one that every time you talk to friends or family, they're like, oh, hey, what's happening with that idea? It was so cool. Maybe it's one that, you know, you do have a connection to a producer or a director or an actor who's waiting on that script. That momentum can make a huge difference in getting your ideas out there and getting your project finished. And finally, we talked about, we talked about your passion. We talked about making it personal. Finally, it's about finding a community. It's about finding those people who are going to help you get it done. And this is the biggest issue I see with writers, because writing is a lonely thing. We all sit behind our computers, in our rooms with the door closed, and we're by ourselves, and it can be a very frustrating process. It can be a very lonely process. And I found the biggest difference in my career, next to the productivity thing, which we'll get into a lot of that here in just a minute, but finding a community. So I encourage you to find 5 people who can, who are looking forward to reading your work, who can check in on the progress, who can just be that kind of nagging person of, hey, where is that thing, that they're waiting on it, and communicate with those 5 people. Say, hey, I'm writing the script. My goal is to finish it by X date. Can you read it then? And if I don't get it to you then, bother me about it. And I know this is a really hard to find for a lot of people, that we're not naturally a part of, especially a filmmaking community. First of all, I don't think it has to be, they don't have to be writers. They don't have to be filmmakers. They don't even have to, know anything about screenplays. Sometimes the best notes we get are from people who know nothing about it. But if you are struggling with that, you can see down at the bottom, members.scriptblast.com. That's one reason we launched this community, is to be this for each other. And we've done a lot of accountability around that, where we'll check in on progress, on a monthly basis. How's your script going? We'll set dates. We'll put it out there. We'll say, hey, I'm going to write this script by this time. And we all kind of bother each other about it. So whether it's with our community or with your own, I encourage you to find those people that are holding you accountable. All right, so next, we talked about kind of defining your writing priorities. Now it's about setting those goals, setting the right goals. So there's 5 things I kind of check off when setting your goals. First is making sure that it's something that you accomplish on your own. I think so often we write goals like, I want to get a manager, or I want to sell a screenplay. These are things that are so, yes, those things might happen, but they're not under your control. They're reliant on someone else of making your goal a reality. These were my goals for the first 10 years I was writing. And I can't tell you how just frustrating and disappointing my writing journey was, and just how not fun it was, because I was constantly putting my goals in someone else's hands. And when I was rejected over and over and over again, as you are in this industry, it would take a long time for me to reset and get excited about that project again. So make sure your goals are something that you can actually control. Secondly, making sure goals that are realistic. So I find that one of the reasons people give up on their goals a lot is they'll say, I'm going to write 10 pages a day. And they do it the first day. They might do it the second day, the third day. They've got, errands to run. They've got kids to pick up. They've got a job. And, oh, I didn't fit it in. The next day, oh, I didn't fit it in. Next day, I didn't fit it in. And they give up on that goal because it was too large of a goal. I think a much better goal is to set something like, I'm going to write 1 paragraph a day, or half a page a day. And what this does is, it allows you, I've only got 10 minutes, I can still knock out half a page, right? And it builds momentum, it keeps going, because when we set these big goals and don't accomplish them, it shuts us down, and it puts a stop to that momentum. When we set realistic goals, even if it's tiny, that momentum builds and builds and builds. And we find that generally, when you set a tiny goal like that, 1 sentence even, that you will write longer and longer even after you finish that little goal, because that momentum is building. The other thing is making it short term. I think a lot of times we make these goals, in the next 5 years. The next 5 years is such a long period of time. I think those goals are great, but I think you need to break down those 5-year goals into smaller annual goals, and even smaller than that, 3-month goals. So making these short-term goals, what am I going to accomplish in the next 3 months? That's something that you can plan out, look forward to, actually check off. Finally, it kind of goes back to our why, right? So making our goal personal. A lot of times we look around and see what other people are doing. Oh man, that guy, well, I was reading about the guy that wrote the new Batman movie and he wrote Project Power, stuff like that, that writes 10 screenplays a year. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And I set out to do that. And because I have a family and a day job and all these other things and ScriptBlast to invest in other writers, I just can't do that. I can't compare my goals to someone else's. So I encourage you to find a goal that works for you. A lot of us are in different seasons of life. If you have small kids, you are not going to accomplish as much as if you were single. If you're working a day job, you're not going to accomplish much if you have a part-time job. And so you have to really assign goals that are accurate for yourself. And I've seen this in my life. When my son was little, I could maybe knock out a screenplay every 2 years. And so it was a very slow process for me. And I would do little, filmmaking things to fill in the time in between. But in terms of writing, sitting down and writing, I just didn't have the time. Now that he's older, he's 17 now. And so I find that, he is off doing whatever with jobs and friends, and I have a lot more time to write and able to accomplish much bigger goals. But make sure that goal is specific to you. Finally, making sure that goal is emotional. And I like to do a thing where, let's see if I have it here. Okay, so when I write a goal, first of all, I like to write it as if it already happened. So you can see, this is my goal for this year, is to write 4 scripts. I'm a little behind, I'm almost done with my second one, but July is almost here. So we'll see how I do for the rest of the year. But you'll see how I phrased it. I said, I wrote 4 scripts in 2021, and then I assign an emotion to it. I say, I feel accomplished and proud of the work I've done and motivated to continue this goal in 2022. So I want you to take a moment to write your goal, but I want you to write it as if it's already accomplished, and I want you to feel that emotion of it. I want you to revisit this. I want you to write this down. I want you to look at it every single day. And something really magical happens when we start looking at goals this way, not something that we're moving forward to, but something that we're looking back on and already accomplished. It's a neat little trick of the brain that really gives you motivation to keep going. So think about that goal for yourself and kind of write down what you want to accomplish. And let's say in the next 3 months, so for me, if I broke down this year-long goal into the next 3 months, I'm going to finish 1 new screenplay. So that's by, July, August, September, by the end of September, I will have written 1 new screenplay. So try that out for yourself. All right, so it's not enough just to set goals. I think I have a life coach friend who walked me through a lot of these principles, and he says whenever he talks to a group, he says, raise your hand if you have a strong goal, and everybody raises their hand. He was like, all right, now keep your hands up if you have that goal written down, and about half of them go down. All right, keep your hand up if you have that goal written down and you have steps that you're going to take to get there. And almost all the hands drop, because there's something about having goals to be front of mind and having a plan to get there that unfortunately humans are really bad at self-control. We're really bad at setting a big goal and actually getting it done. So how do you combat that? Well, you turn that big goal into a system. You turn it into something that cannot fail. You turn it into steps along the way to get you from point A to point B. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. So how do you turn these big goals? We just wrote down our big 3-month goal. How do we turn it into a habit? So first is what we talk about: write it down, revisit on the regular, keep it front of mind. I think, like I mentioned, having as your phone screen is huge every time you look at it. And we'll talk a little bit about how to avoid being distracted and not getting stuff done as well. And I think that's a great way to do it. And then So writing it down and then breaking your goal down into quarterly habits, monthly habits, weekly habits, and daily habits. So for me, quarterly, one thing I like to do is just revisit this whole goal setting kind of workshop for myself. I print off all these worksheets, I go through them, I keep it front of mind. I'm constantly reminded of what I'm trying to accomplish and why. I remind myself of my why. I remind myself of what I'm thankful for, of what I'm driven by, of my values. But that quarterly thing might look differently for you. It might be, you know, setting out, that's the one time where you set out a new kind of daily schedule for yourself, where you've learned from the past quarter of what you can accomplish and what you can't, and you might revisit that. So monthly, you know, for me, that means checking in on my progress. What did I do well this past month? What did I do poorly? What will I do differently as a result of that? It might mean monthly I'm reading what I've written so far. It might mean revisiting my treatment or outline to see how close I am to it, and rewriting that in order to help me build momentum to get the script done. Weekly goals. So my weekly goals are writing based, because I do work a day job and have family and everything pulled me in different directions. I actually have a hard time setting a daily goal. So I'll set a weekly goal of, you know, writing 6 hours every week. And so usually that falls on the weekend where I have some free time. But that's taking that big 3-month goal of finishing the screenplay and it's breaking it down into smaller bits. And if I can write just 6 hours, you know, every week, over those 3 months, I'll be able to accomplish this screenplay. So figuring out your quarterly goal, your monthly goal, your weekly goal, and then your daily goal. So myself, daily goal is just revisiting my goal. It's looking and saying, all right, what's in front of mind? What am I trying to accomplish? It might mean, you know, looking at my quarterly, monthly, weekly steps to make sure I'm still lined up with that. It might mean adjusting my the number of pages that I can actually get done in a day. But you can see how you're starting to take this big goal, breaking it down, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. It just turns it into steps, and you can think of it as, you know, actual steps that each one might be little tiny, but as you do them every day over you know, 3 months, all of it really adds up in a huge way. So another way to turn your goal into a habit is just setting writing rituals. I was just reading Stephen King's On Writing, and he compares our writing rituals very much to our sleeping rituals. He says, you know, to get a better sleep, you want to put your device in the other room. You might want to play, you know, a meditation before going to bed. You, you know, buy a new pillow. You set your clothes out for the day. Whatever. We have these rituals for sleeping. Why would we not have these rituals for writing as well? So this is the way I like to define your writing rituals: is figuring out when you're going to write. Maybe that's daily. Maybe that's getting up early in the morning. Maybe it's doing it late at night. Maybe it's doing it on your lunch break at work. Maybe it's fitting in into just little 10-minute increments when you have a moment. But figure out when you're going to write. Figure out where you're going to write. So, you know, where do you feel like you get the most done? For myself, I love sitting outside. There's something about nature that just gets my brain going. That's not always the option if it's too hot or raining or whatever. But I like to establish where I'm going to write. That might be for you. It might be a desk. It might be an office. It might be, you know, somewhere where you're just not distracted, somewhere where you can close the door. What does your environment look like? For myself, I love to have kind of inspirational things as well. Think about what you're going to be looking at when you look up from your screen. Are you going to be looking at something positive or negative? Maybe it's a piece of art or a family photo that inspires you. Maybe it's a quote about writing that gets you going. And what are you going to be listening to? Do you like to write to music with words or without words? One thing I love to do that's a quick tip is making a writing playlist for every script that I'm writing. And it does this really cool thing where when I play that playlist, the story immediately floods back into my head and I can get into that writing vibe a lot quicker with a playlist. So think about what you're looking at, what you're listening to, and then what are you going to accomplish? So like we talked about before, setting a kind of goal every time you sit down to write, whether that be one sentence, one page, or a number of words, whatever that is for you. But I think it's important to know what you want to accomplish and then keep track of that progress, because what you might find is after 5 days, you didn't reach that goal. Maybe it's time to reassess what you can actually accomplish in that time, which brings us to tracking your progress. So this is huge for me because I really believe that tracking it builds momentum in order to be able to see what you've done. We're redoing our yard right now, planting grass where there was no grass. And it's been really cool because within like a week, I got out there with like an aerator, put a bunch of holes, threw a bunch of seeds down, watered it every day. And so, after a week, I started to see grass coming up. After that first day, maybe nothing, and I'd start to get frustrated. And now that 2 weeks in, you see all this grass. And it really makes a difference to see the progress that you're making. So it's the same thing with tracking your progress with your writing. All these little steps feel like not much until you look at them all together. So I actually have a document that every time I sit down to write, I write down how many minutes I wrote for and how many pages I got done, and then I tally those pages together. So for yourself, whether it's daily or weekly, how many pages did I write this week? What did I do well this week with sitting down and getting it done? What did I do poorly this week? And what will I do differently next week? This could be a daily exercise, it could be a weekly exercise, it could be a monthly exercise, to just revisit your progress, revisit your goals in order to track how you're doing, build momentum, and actually getting it done. We're going to jump over to like time management a little bit, because I think that's the biggest struggle with most writers is I just don't have time to write. Certainly in my own life, I've mentioned, balancing lots of things, started a new day job in January, just keeping me very busy. My son is older, but I like to prioritize time with him still. So at the end of the day, we might go watch a movie or something like that. And I've run out of time to write. But I did this exercise about a year ago that really opened my eyes to just how much time I was wasting in a week. So this is how it works. For the next week, I want you to write down what you do with every minute of your time. So from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed, and put sleep on there too, I want you to write down everything that you do. Our phones make it real easy. It tracks it for us and gives me this embarrassingly high number of amount of time that I spend on my phone every day. So it's a great way to track that. But pay attention to what you do with the rest of your time. How much are you sitting in front of the TV? Watching, binge watching something on Netflix? How much time are you spending hitting the snooze button in the morning on social media? Really tracking your time and seeing where you spend that time. And I think what this does is it really gives you, lots of us say writing is important to us, but our lives show something different, which is, when you go back over this, and when my phone tells me I spent an average of 4 hours a day on social media, then writing is not my priority. Social media is my priority, because your priority is going to be where you spend your time. So tracking your time over the course of a week will really give you a good idea of what your priorities are. Now, once you have that over the course of a week, you've defined for yourself what you did with all that time, then you have some questions to ask yourself in order to appraise that time. So looking at this, what activities are most valuable to me, right? So if I spent 2 hours writing, but I spent 6 hours binging something on Netflix, then Netflix is a much more valuable activity to me than writing is. What are my most productive times of the day? This is a great way to kind of study where, looking at your time, where am I burnt out? Where do I just need to sit and decompress and read a book or watch TV? Those might be your low productivity times. Where am I most motivated? For myself, it's early in the morning, generally, because by the end of the day, I'm a little more burnt out. So if I'm gonna write, I try to write first thing. Or I try to revisit my goals first thing. Those are my most productive times. Because I think, again, if we're trying to squeeze writing in at the end of the day when we are low energy, it's going to be a frustrating journey. We're going to give up a lot quicker. We're going to not be able to accomplish what we really want to accomplish. What are my healthy influences and what are my unhealthy influences? It's not just about how you spend time. It's about what those activities make you feel. Do they inspire you? Maybe watching a show on Netflix inspires you to go write. That would be a healthy influence. Maybe getting on social media and flipping through other writers and seeing all they've accomplished makes you feel bad about yourself. Well, get rid of that unhealthy influence, unfollow those people, spend less time doing that kind of thing, but recognize what's inspiring you and recognize what's draining you, and try to cut those draining things out. Finally, what are my time suck landmines? What are the things that, I'll hop on to check my email and then 6 hours later I look up and that time is gone. Those are the time suck landmines. Those are the things that come out of nowhere and take all our time away. So come up with a plan for those things. When you're looking back over your week and saying, what really sucked my time out, what really sucked my energy out, this is what I'm going to do next time. So maybe that's, setting limits on your phone where it reminds you after 2 hours that you've been on social media for too long. Maybe it's taking that phone screen, that home screen, and making it your goal. So every time you pick up your phone, you're reminded of that. Maybe it's putting your goal above your TV, so you're reminding of that before you sit down to do that. But it's coming up with a plan ahead of time. Otherwise, we're always going to default and never learn from dealing with those time suck landmines. So finally, we've kind of assessed our time. We've looked at what we've done in a week, and now it's time to assign your time. So one thing I like to do is you take all those figures you came up with. I wrote for 2 hours. I, slept for 8 hours. I was on the internet for 4 hours. And now reassign those values based on what you really value. If writing is really important to you, how do you up that number? Where are you going to up that number? Get on your phone, in your calendar, set a time for writing to remind you when you get to that time, so that you'll actually do it and assign every moment. I don't always live up to this, but it's one thing I love to do is really assign what I'm going to be doing. So that if you ask me 2 weeks from now on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock, what are you going to be doing? And I can point to my calendar and say, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing, and try to stick that as much as possible. It's a great way to make sure that you're getting your writing in, and prioritizing that, because we're so easily going to be pulled over to other things. And finally, let's say that you just don't have that much time in your week to get stuff done. I still think you can accomplish way more than you think you can. This is the method that I learned that really just blew my productivity out of the water. I couldn't believe how much I was able to get done as a result of this process. And this is how it works. You open up, when you sit down to write, and let's say you only have 30 minutes. You sit down to write, you open up 2 documents. One is going to be your screenplay or story, whatever you're working on. The other one is going to be a note stock. Or maybe you have, maybe you like to write longhand and you've got an actual notepad. Set a timer for 30 minutes. And for 30 minutes, you're not allowed to stop typing. So you're either writing your screenplay, or you're writing in your note stock. Writing a screenplay, if you get stuck on a line, you get stuck on a scene, you don't know what's coming next, go over to your note stock, and just unload whatever is in your mind. Come up with 10 ideas for the next scene or the next line. And it's just a way of building that creativity, building that momentum, so that you can get back to your script. And you just go back and forth between this document for 30 minutes without stopping typing. When that timer goes off, you can take a break, you can walk around, you can have a drink, you can celebrate, and then sit down and set that timer again. The same principle works with, let's say if you have 15 minutes, it works if you have an hour. But I like for myself, setting the shorter times, because it helps me, generally I go over, and going over always makes me feel better. If I set it for an hour and I stopped at 45 minutes, then I would be real frustrated with that progress. So set, again, a small goal of writing and getting it done. And I find that with this method, I'm able to write about 3 pages in each of these 30-minute segments, really consistently. And I wouldn't have known that without tracking my progress. And so, like I mentioned before, having a document, this is how long I wrote, this is how many pages I got done, this is the tally of total pages I've done as a result of this. And I promise you, it will really, really blow your mind what you're capable, how much you're capable of writing just in 30 minutes. All right, so that's kind of it for this call. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat and I will answer them. But before we hop off, I wanted to let you guys know about this, our ScriptBlast members group for you guys who are not a part of it. It's been, you know, for years ago, I started ScriptBlast just as a way to inspire writers. It was a Facebook group, it was an Instagram account. I'd post inspiring content, you know, links to blogs and things like that. And it was all great, but it was so passive. And I found myself hopping onto ScriptBlast and then getting distracted by something else on Facebook, and it would end up killing time instead of helping time. So finally, I came up with this idea of pulling the community off of social media and putting it into a private community. And so that's what ScriptBlast Members is. And so inside that community, we have weekly Zoom calls, very much like this. There's a lot of the ScriptBlast members in this group right now. And we have dedicated writing time. So, hey, for the next hour, we're all going to be writing together over Zoom. It's really productive time just to know other people are writing at the same time. We've got a huge resource library of worksheets that you can download, and a lot of this content kind of unpacked a little more in depth with a bunch of workshops. And just the community is just the most encouraging, coolest community I've ever been a part of. And it's such an encouraging vibe. Everybody in there is there to write and get stuff done, not to brag or show off. And it's been super, super cool. So I'm actually going to drop in a link for a free month. So, well, thank you guys so much. This was really, really cool. I'm so glad that you could all join me today. I really hope that was helpful. Please stay in touch with me either in our community or you can reach me at hudson@scriptblast.com. It was great to see you all, and I really appreciate it. We'll see you guys. Bye.